Gosh, something people wouldn't know from looking at me, they they probably wouldn't know that I am professionally in the gardening industry now, just because a lot of the times the owners aren't women, they aren't black women, so they probably wouldn't know that, but oh, they wouldn't know that I'm one of those. I burn my sage, and in the words of Beyonce, I charge my crystals in the full moon. I am into like rocks and crystals and all that pretty stuff that comes from the earth. And gosh, that fits in the garden. But yeah, I got a little a treasure chest of rose quartz and all kinds of cool stuff that I think is really pretty. And sometimes I go down those kinds of rabbit holes, and people might not know that. Now that's enough of my personal business.
Um,
So my favorite song right now, the song that I have on repeat is Thundercat Them Changes, and it is like, gosh, that is 3 minutes of funk bass guitar that is just like you want to turn your music up real loud. But yeah, Thundercat Them Changes, and I stay on an Airy Lennox kind of vibe. I love that song Whipped Cream and A New Apartment. But yeah, right now I can play right now. If Thundercat comes on, I just want to lean back and have a moment. That Thundercat Them Changes. Put that on your playlist if you never heard that. Or if I could eat one meal for the rest of my life, it would be like cheeseburger with bacon and blue cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, extra pickles. I love it. I'd eat it nonstop if I could. If I if and that's why my doctor is talking to me about cholesterol. But yeah, if I could have one thing, it'd be a bougie cheeseburger. Now what I do eat all the time, like I eat salads out of the garden just about every day. Or something out of the garden, not salads, because when it gets hot, I don't get the salad out of the garden. I got a pot in the kitchen that's growing lettuce all the time. But like I eat salads out of the garden all the time. And like I take oregano and thyme most mornings and like mix that up with my scrambled eggs. That's my jam. Um, but that's just, I guess that's just habit. But the thing I could eat every day if there was no consequence, big old juicy burger with blue cheese, bacon, tomato, lettuce, extra pickles, bring it. I wanted to be in charge of a community center when I grew up. I even like I still have a scholarship essay I wrote, and I talked about wanting to run something like a boys and girls club or a YMCA, a youth organization. And I trucked along pretty fine with that. Because by the time before I was 30, I was doing that kind of work pretty largely. So I guess there's something to be said about when they tell you like write down your dreams, write down what you want. Um, you can hit the target if you focus in. But yeah, I wanted to like run a community organization, and then I did it. Yeah, then I did it. Um, I dreamed about that when I was a little girl, and I guess that came from like I had really cool teachers, and I was involved in a whole lot of stuff. And really young, I realized there's a lot of value in giving young people opportunities to see things they couldn't see. So I built my career out of college doing that, and and I just kind of knuckled my way to the top. Yeah. So to recharge, I like spending time with Todd, my husband. We can sit on the couch and find something on Netflix, and that's good enough. Um, I love an old Epsom salt bath, a hot bath that helps me feel recharged. I like a hot bath and a face mask. That's one of my ways that I recharge. I try to um when I've had like rough days, I do try to go outside and scrape around, scoop around in a pot and put my hands in the dirt. And so this is some of that cheesy stuff about like why I like crystals and stuff. There is something to be said. They call it grounding yourself, like walk barefoot in the grass and like it helps, it does something to you. God made it that way, like for you to touch nature, it helps you. But like when I've had a rough day or a rough week, I get out in my own garden and do the things, right? For work right now, I do gardening and I help people with gardening, but that's work, that's job. When I need to recharge, though, I will get out there and I can prune some roses and like just tidy up some pots, and it makes me feel good. So those are my three. I spend time with my boo. And we can spend time doing nothing and it is relaxing. I love a Epsom salt bath with a face mask. And then I like getting outside and tinkering around with my plants. That's how I relax and stop thinking about all the stuff in the world. What about you? Well, the Marshall Garden Company is a dream of mine. I when I was a little girl, we had the Marshall Pottery in my hometown, and across the kind of across the street from the Marshall Pottery, there was this nursery, and I don't know what's in that space now, but there was this nursery, and I remember there was a bridge that went over a little stream, and I remember feeling like that was the most magical place. There were all kinds of plants. And when I got there, like I could just kind of run around and play and have a good time. And I remember the owners, like they would, they would, I think their way of helping kids not play too rough in the garden was like they would tell me the names of plants. And that just always was a magical place to me. You see Winston back there? He's so cool. So the Marshall Garden Company is my effort to bring some of that magic and to give some of that magic back to my hometown. And I'm going to do that through plants and flowers and shrubs. I believe that gardening is just another way to build community, to get to know some people who have who have similar interests to you, who like to do the kinds of things that you do. And I want the Marshall, I don't want Marshall Garden Company will become a place where people sit down, they let their hair down, they do a little bit of relaxing while they're coming up with their next work project. We'll figure out how that works. But yeah, I believe that gardening helps build community. Some of my best memories as a little girl were like spending time with my grandmother out picking weeds in her yard, or like when we went to the garden centers around town and her having those moments with her sisters and siblings when they would come to Marshall and they'd be like, girl, you can grow everything. Made her feel really good. And I think that's a special thing, and I want to give that to people. I want the Marshall Garden Company, it'll be a place where people have some more options to get the things that they need to grow. um a lot of towns, they don't have as many garden centers, and there are a whole lot of reasons as to why. But I want to be a part of giving that back to people. I had a conversation with my brother, and he was a school teacher, but talking to him about children kind of learning where the apple comes from for real, right? Because they don't quite get it, or understanding, where water comes from, right? Because sometimes they don't quite understand how simple and complex that process is. I was talking to someone about, all water is recycled, right? There's no new water on the planet. So being able to use the garden center for people to talk through some of those things. But also I think it's important to know how to grow something, right? It might not be a tomato, might not be your thing, a rose might not be your thing, a petunia might not be your thing. But I think you need to know how to grow something, and and that's what we're given. This business matters because the ag industry, it matters, right? And people who get their hands in the dirt and make so much of our country, our state, our towns move, they're doing ag stuff. And that sort of work, it matters so much. And I want to be another person shining a light on such an important industry that, gosh, had I didn't know that you could make a living in like selling plants. For whatever reason, when I was a little girl, that didn't click in my mind. And perhaps that's because my dream coming out of the gates was a little different. But I want to shine a light on the fact that you can make a good living doing all sorts of things. If you're the kid that's into animals, you can figure out how to make a really successful living doing animals. I'll tell you a story about me working at the zoo later if we have time. But if you're someone who really is into flowers or plants or trees or whatever that is, you can make a really good living doing that. And I think that, you think about a young kid when they're little, right? That's when they're first discovering what their passions are, what their calling is. And sometimes because we're unsure about how to make a living doing that, we not intentionally, but we'll discourage young people from building careers doing those sorts of things. And I hope that my business ends up serving as an example of how you can do this line of work that is absolutely East Texas. That is, I mean, gosh, I just talked to my cousin. He was so happy because he sold his pig, and his brothers and sisters and cousins, they have done the same thing at Ag Week. But it's special when you like raise something and then you make a living doing that. So I want Marshall Garden Company to be a part of that. Part of the reason I'm into this is because there aren't a ton of women that are leading in this way in the gardening industry, but the ones who do, they are rock stars. And I've met men who lead in the gardening industry and they say their secret weapons and what has made them have success is when they are able to help women propel in this industry. So I hope to see a whole lot of girls that are like, I'm gonna figure out how to have my six-figure career doing plants. And I'm old enough now that I can bet on myself and I can go for it. I also I've been to like some incredible garden centers where you walk in there and you feel the magic. And I want to be a part of giving people the magic in this part of my life. I've worked really hard and built a successful career professionally doing some other things. And now hey, let's do it again. But I am a person who I bet on myself, right? I am not afraid to bet on myself. And I hope people see that, hey, this girl from our town, she's got all that East Texas gusto, all that East Texas bravado that we raise people with. And she's willing to bet on herself. And the reason I'm willing to bet on myself is because I was given the tools to bet on myself at Marshall High School and at Price T. Young, and growing up in Marshall, I was able to get the tools to feel confident that, hey, you can do the things. And but part of one of those tools was I had a lot of people that I could see myself in. My grandmother ran a barbecue business after she worked for a gentleman, Greg, who ran a successful barbecue business, right? He was a launch pad for her. Um, my mom had 5 kids and managed to go to college and do that. I had aunts that were incredibly successful. One day, y'all will meet my Aunt Barb, and she can tell you her story of doing magic at Neiman Marcus, right? So I want people to recognize themselves in me, right? That I'm a regular girl who lives her life, but I'm willing to bet on myself, and I want other people to bet on themselves because you got it. Um I've been fortunate enough to go all around the world, all around this country, and people from East Texas have a strength and some smarts and some wit about themselves that you don't see everywhere. And sometimes we are expected, oh, be so humble and be ashamed that your country and you say y'all. Don't do that. Lean into that, and whatever that dream is, whatever that call is on your life, go for it. So I plan to be an example of that, so that little girls that come frolicking through my garden center can feel like, oh, I can go do whatever, because you can. I want people in my community in Marshall and in East Texas to know that this company, that what I'm building is for them. And if they have thoughts, if they have feedback, I'm willing to hear it out, to try to make this mission, this vision of mine stronger. I also want them to know that if you want to grow something, you can, right? You can have a beautiful yard, you can have a beautiful front porch, you can have that thing, and I will help you figure out how to have it. One of the things I love about gardening is you get to create something that is absolutely beautiful and breathtaking, right? When you plant your, like, I'm looking at those coleus I got back there. I don't know if you can see them or not, but when you plant your coleus or whatever it is, you get to look at it and you get to admire it while it serves its time in your yard. I want people in my community to know that people from Marshall build beautiful, successful, wonderful businesses, and they do it for their own families, but they also do it for our community. And if one person in Marshall can do it, so can the next person, and so can the next person. So we all can build some successful things if we are willing to bet on ourselves. Well, I know that's right. Um, Starting a business is a big deal. The thing that I get most excited about is like, hey, I'm getting to do this. I have an opportunity to do this, and I get excited about just what it will become, right? And I don't think, I know that I am a person who is always excited about what the future will bring. Right now I can't stop thinking about, like, when January gets here and we open the doors and we have like beautiful house plants in there for people to pick from, and to take something home so they can warm up for the spring. I'm excited about, the person who comes in and they're like, I've never grown one of these, I'm going to try. I'm excited about when we get the chance to offer gardening classes, to say, hey, you want to start your fall garden, well, let me help you out. I'm excited about, I'm really excited about when we hire our first groups of people, especially folks who they're like, hey, I don't know if I can do this gardening thing, but I'm willing to try. I'm excited about that. The part that keeps me up at night, and the part that keeps me up at night is money, right? Todd and I are, it is from the bank of the Johnsons, right? And so sometimes the money keeps me up at night because it's a lot, right? But I am a faithful girl who, I believe you can bet in yourself. My husband, my husband can sell water to a fish and ice to an Eskimo. So I believe that we will have a strong ability to sell products so that we can make a living and that we can pay our employees and that we can bring in the best products, right? um and I got a little something with me, but the part that keeps me up at night is the money. The A window costs what? A door costs what? A cement pad costs what? That's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night because I'm human, right? I'm willing to bet on myself, but there are moments when I'm like, oh my God, we're spending this money on what? I could have the security of, like, go get you a job and work for somebody, and you got a paycheck coming every other week, and that, God, to have health insurance that's supplemented from a company, right? There's some security that comes with that. And sometimes that keeps me up at night, but I just give me a bowl of ice cream and keep it kicking. Trying to give people an inside look at a lot of what we're doing and trying to be really transparent about, like, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the in between stuff, the easy stuff, and the hard stuff. So I enjoy being able to show people, like, hey, here's where we're going with it. People should follow along and support the Marshall Garden Company because it's going to be incredible. It's going to be beautiful. We will have the best flowers and the best products. But they should also follow along because in the words of LL Cool J and the cool people at FUBU, it is for us by us. So So if you're a gardener, you absolutely should follow along because we're going to have all the things that are your jam. If you are not a gardener, but you're interested in becoming a gardener, know that we're going to do all we can to help you be successful at gardening and to help you get in on the fun. Um, and if you ain't nowhere connected to gardening, you should follow along because it's your people doing your kind of stuff. If a person was on the fence about checking us out, I'd say get off the fence. We had to come up with we did a mission statement and values for the company. And our values ended up being dig in, keep going, keep growing, and worth the work. Right. And those three things, though, that's what I would say to a person that's on the fence. Step one, you got to dig in. If you're interested in a thing, and I don't know why you would be on the fence for something that you're not interested in, dig in. And that might look like I'm going to do a little bitty plant, or I'm going to do, I don't know, grow a cactus. No, but if anybody that's on, and this isn't just for us with the Marshall Garden Company, anyone who's on the fence, you are interested. So take advantage of your interest. If you got a little tinkering in you about a thing, you should go explore that just a little bit, right? Sometimes we get afraid of our interest in I don't think that's right. If you're interested in somebody, go explore. Yeah. That's Winston bringing the frisbee. Come here. There he goes. He wants his frisbee. No frisbee right now. Winston, place. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. My favorite plant, that's my favorite plant. That's a trick question. So I love salvias. I love salvias, and I love them because once they are established, which usually takes a year, sometimes two, once they're established, they're pretty drought tolerant. But salvias bring you bees, butterflies, and all the pretty little creatures. I love hummingbirds, and I plant a whole lot of salvia so I can see the hummingbirds all the time. Um, I'm a rose girl. I'm an old school rose girl. I probably have, don't tell nobody, tell everybody. I probably have 20 roses on our property. I love roses. I love heirloom roses. I love floribundas. I love old nasty David Austin rose. I got some climbing roses. I love that Lady Banks over there. I like the roses. I think, but here's why I like the roses. You asked me what do I do to relax. Let me tell you something. I get my gloves on, I get my clippers on, and I can go and trim up roses and prune roses, and it because you have to be careful and you have to slow down, or you gonna thorn the hell out of yourself. Because you have to be careful and slow down. It is a very relaxing thing for me. Um, Vegetables, I love to grow tomatoes, and I have become more interested in peppers, hot peppers, hot peppers, and I don't even like them when they real hot. Um, so that's a plant, that's a shrub. What else? Trees. I dream of one day, like look, my third round of a career. I guess when I turn 60, I'd love to have a Japanese maple farm. I don't even know how to make that make sense, but if I could have a farm of Japanese maple trees, I'll let people come walk with agritourism. They can come walk through it and take pictures. I don't know. Um, I love a Japanese maple and a Texas redbud. You gotta love a redbud tree. It's magic here. If you want to plant a tree in Texas, do a redbud. It will survive, thrive, and look really good. Um, and then what else? Annual plants. I like petunias. I keep it simple. I keep it kind of funky. I like petunias and I like vincas. I like vincas because when it's July hot, they will still give you some flowers. I like petunias because you can put them in late February, early March, and it is like, hey, it's spring. And then I like the bulbs. I like them all. That's a trick question. No, salvias. I'd go with salvias. I like those a whole lot, and I'm a rose girl. Oh, I love the houseplant craze. I love the houseplant craze. I have become one of the houseplant girls. I am amazed by how younger people, younger than my generation, have taken on and they have championed the houseplant industry in a way that is going to, that not is going to, that is helping that industry almost revolutionize. One of the things that I have seen in our industry is that a lot of the times we are trying so hard to make everything so inexpensive that you will have business owners going in the red because they are selling things for less than they can buy them for. That's a piece of advice that I have gotten from the so many folks that have come to mentor me. Don't fall into that trap that you are willing to sell something for less than it costs. And I think that happens because, gosh, your customer doesn't know. They don't know that you can't buy a petunia for $1. They don't know that you can't buy a petunia for $2. They don't know that you can't buy those plants for $5 a plant. If we could, we'd sell them for but in the houseplant industry, one of the things that we have seen happening here recently is this interest in rare plants, right? And I always think about sansevieria snake plant that has become a quote unquote rare plant to some of these people, and we always see snake plants, and your auntie got a snake plant. But because there was so much energy behind these house plants, right, we were able to begin selling those plants at a fairer price, right, at a price that paid for the farmer and paid for the soil and the fertilizer and all the work that goes into turning a plant into a plant, right? Sometimes people think, oh well, I can just grow it from a seed and then it won't cost me anything. A package of seeds is $2 or $3. I think they're like, people think, oh, well, I can just grow it from a seed and then it'll only be $2, the price of seeds. By the time you buy soil, fertilizer, amendments, water, and all the things for your plant, you didn't grow a tomato for $2, baby. I wish I got some last year we had some tomatoes. You can ask Todd when you talk to him. The books I'm reading. So okay, that's a good one. A one book that I always recommend to gardeners. There's a book called The $64 Tomato, and it is just fun. This gentleman tells a story of him deciding he buys his house and he builds a garden and he plants it and he does all the things. But by the time he came to the price of his tomato, it was $64. But it is a great story. It feels good, easy read. I am reading right now Botany for Gardeners. I have become interested in the families and species of plants and why they work the way they work. So I've been reading that. Um, and another book that I recommend is Plant Parents by Leslie Halleck. So she lived in Dallas for a while, but she has since moved, and she is a brilliant horticulturalist. That's hard to say with my East Texas slang, but she is a brilliant plant person, and she wrote a book called Plant Parenting, and it is a simple guide that will help new plant people understand how to take care of their plants. Yeah, it's a good one, but I'd go with the $64 tomato if you can find a copy of that. Leslie Halleck's Plant Parenting, and if you want to nerd out with me, you can read Botany for Gardeners. So this is great. Absolutely. Thanks so much. So I'm Melissa Johnson. I'm the owner of the Marshall Garden Company. You can find us online at marshallgardenco.com. And you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Look up Marshall Garden. Okay, I'm fixing to go eat me a salad. Baby, get into this microphone. You got to do what you got to do. Later.